Hi, and welcome to another edition of Hacking Maths. Today, we're going to learn some Python. Now, check the information below the video on how to install Python on your computer. And once you've got that done, come back and open up the program, and we'll get started. So, here I am using idle in Python. This is the shell, and we can just type straight away into this. The interpreter will automatically understand and interpret what we type in. So we can just do 4 plus 5, gives us 9. I prefer a little bit of spacing really between it, so it's a little bit easier to read. We can say 4 plus 5 is 9. It's not that important, but legibility is important for you. Now, that's addition. What about multiplication? We can use the little times sign. 4 times 5 gives us 20. How about 4 take away 5? That's minus 1, obviously. But what about 4 divided by 5? What's that going to be? 0.8? Unfortunately not. It turns out to be 0. Because Python does division slightly differently, and it's dependent on the numbers that you use. Now, we've used a special type of number. We've used a whole number here. 4 and 5 are both whole numbers. And because we're using them, Python says how many whole 5s are in 4, and it says 0, because there's no 5s in 4. If we wanted to get the correct answer of 0.8, we would have to either write 4 as a floating point number, so 4.0 divided by 5. Or we could write 5 as a floating point number, and we would get 0.8. Or we could write them both as floating point numbers, and we would get 0.8. Okay, so we get the correct answer when we use floating point numbers. Now, that doesn't mean to say what Python is doing wrong. It's correctly interpreting what division is for integers. And we have these two types of numbers, the integers, that's our whole numbers, and floating point numbers, which are decimals. So you can choose what you're going to use when you're going to use it. Now, Python will automatically assume that a number without any decimals is an integer. So you must be careful if you're then going to use that number in a calculation. There are a couple of other mathematical things that we can use. We can do 4 mod 5. Gives us an answer of 4. Maybe not the best example. Let's look at something slightly different. Let's look at 14 divided by 5. And first of all, how many 5s go into 14? Well, there are 2. 2 times 5 is 10. Remainder 4. So we get 2. Let's do 14 mod 5. 4. So what's happening here is, when we do 14 divided by 5, the integers, we get the whole number part first. So what the whole numbers are. And if we do 14 mod 5, we get what the remainder is. And the remainders can be very useful for checking whether a number is even, checking numbers divisible by something else. They crop up all the time, so they're very, very useful. Also for dealing with fractions, if you were trying to write a calculator where it worked out how to add fractions together, it would be very, very useful to use the modulus operation. Now, although this is good typing things in, one thing we like to be able to do in programming is use variables. So we can use variables whatever we want. It's best to use something that makes sense. But for these examples, I'm just going to maybe use some letters. So we're going to say, let's call the variable A 7. And the variable B, we're going to call that 10. And I can actually now, instead of typing 7 and 10, if I want to do calculations, I can say A times B, and I get 70. Very nice and easy. So this is just like a beginning of how we can use these variables. Now, this is all well and good. However, we want to make sure that we can do different things with them. And variables don't just have to be numbers. They can be strings. They can be integers. They can be lots of different things. They can even be other variables. But that's getting a little bit more advanced. So let's have a look at this. We can do different things. So if I did my A divided by B here, Oh, I get my 0 again because remember, they're both integers. However, so how do I make one of these into a float? Well, what I can do is I can cast it into a float here. So I can put float A like that, divide it by B, and this time we should get an answer of 0.7 when we do it. Okay, so what we've done is we've casted there. We've converted from one type to another. And this is really quite important because in Python we can do this. We can cast from one type to another if it's allowed. If it isn't, you'll get an error, and you'll see that very quickly. But we can cast from ints and float, an int to a float. We can cast a float to an int. So if I did something like int 1, let's do 12 point here. So you can see here it's saying int, and it gives an int or a long number at the end. So we can do, let's say 12.6, see what this turns out to be. It comes out to be 12 because it just chops off the decimal part of the number and takes the whole part of the number. So that's called casting. We can do a few other things. So we can do a few other things with variables. So let's have a look. Let's just take a word, and let's call that word to be hello. Okay, so now we have this word hello. I can type hello, and that prints out the word hello. However, to properly print out the word hello, we should really type print word, and that gives us the correct response there. I can use print, can I do this? I wonder, let's see, print 4 plus 7, it gives us 11. Now I know what you're thinking, but we didn't have to type this before. Well, that's true, but you will move on to creating Python files, and to get things to appear in the console, you need to actually use the print statement. Otherwise, it's not going to appear there. So with that in mind, let's create our first Python program. It's going to be very, very simple, and I'll introduce you to comments as well. So if we go up and open file, do a new file. Here we are here with our little file. It's going to be very straightforward. Let's move this across so we can see what's happening. So the first thing we want to be able to do is start with comments, and you can use a hash in Python to comment. My first Python program. Okay, and the very first Python program that all programmers do, regardless of which language it's in, is to do print hello world. Now, if I didn't put this print here, let's see what happens. Well, let's just do hello world. Whoops. And see what happens. And we'll put a comma, say no print, and we'll put the comma after this one and say with print, and let's see what happens when we can save this. So let's go file, save, and just save it to the desktop, and we'll call it hello. Save that there, and then we can go up to run, and we can just run the module straight away, and it'll run. Oh, and it's come out at the bottom down here, hello world with print. So notice that even though I wrote this string here, it's not come out. It's not been printed to the console. So to make things come to the console, we must use this statement print. Okay? Now we can just delete that. That's not really necessary. Let's get rid of the with print, and I'll show you a few other commenting techniques. We can do single line comments with hash. This is a single line comment, or we can use 3 apostrophes, and this allows us to do multi-line comments. So here I can go, this is the second line, this is the third line, and once we've done that, if we put the 3 apostrophes at the end, we've now actually closed that off, and this should have no effect on our program if we run it. So let's save it, go back up to run the module, and look, it says hello world, just as we expected. Okay, so this has been a quick introduction into Python. I hope you found it useful. Any comments, questions, leave them in the comments below, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time on Hacking Maths.